All right, everybody, welcome to Monday stream. We are going to be talking about BTC first and foremost, and then we'll get into a little bit of education afterwards. We'll look at some strong altcoins and kind of move from there. Is there any concepts that you guys have questions on? I'll kind of throw that out to you all. Mondays are usually our day to look at some education and for me to go ahead and start teaching you guys some of the stuff that I know. And so if you guys do have any questions about that, then first and foremost I will be getting those answered, okay? Let me go ahead. Let me know, guys, if you can see my screen and everything. It should be set there. Yeah, we can totally go over market sessions. I think that's a good idea. Yeah, we can talk about him. Yeah, Harrison, I'm still in A16Z. We can talk about it too. Nothing has really happened with it, to be honest. Like it's just pretty much been chopping sideways, boring. Not gonna lie, but we can for sure take a look at it, and I can tell you at least what I think. Perfect, perfect. Let's do it. You guys can see my screen, right? Should be a Bitcoin chart here. All right, cool. So let's talk about sessions today. We can actually pull them up on BTC as well. So pretty much the idea with sessions, New York, Asia, and London, is that the markets in those different places, New York, Asia, and London's, are open at different times of the day, of course, and that has all to do with, you know, around the world. Of course, we're not all in the same time zone, and so and in those places like New York, in London, in Asia, stock markets are open at different times as well throughout the day. And so, for example, you can use those sessions to give you an idea of when there will be higher volatility, more volume in the markets. So, for the most part, people like to trade New York, Asia, and London sessions during those times of days when those sessions are open because there's more volume, because there's usually more volatility. And as a result, there's usually more trades to be had at those times, which makes people want to be able to trade them, and then therefore that's why they do that in general and why they mark them. There's an indicator on TradingView that honestly is the way that I like to mark sessions so that I know when they're happening. And there's a lot of different ones out here. You can do sessions Asia, London, New York. You can let's try this Lux Algo one on here. Yeah, so for me, this is a really good one, except I would adjust this just a bit so that you're not, let's just say, having every single day of the week on the chart. I don't think that's super necessary for me personally. It's kind of nice to be able to mark the days of the week, but I think it's too busy, like too many things on the chart at once. So if you're using like this Algo Sessions one indicator, which is free, just I would go into settings here. I forgot my trading view doesn't let me go into settings right now. Let me pull up one that I don't have to really change the settings on. Yeah, this one's good. So for example, like this is makes it pretty simple if you know what you're looking at, if that makes sense. So for me personally, like this red, let's see, we can overlay these. If I overlay, you can kind of see London. Well, honestly, let's just use the Luxago one because I want you guys to be able to see the labels. We'll leave the day of the week labels on there for now. But here, you have a really good example of trading the different sessions. So Sydney, New York, London, Tokyo. So pretty much what that's saying is London, New York, Australia, and then Japan time zones on here. So Asia. Let's see, Ravener. What about the weekends? Does that normally affect crypto's price action when trad markets are closed? Yeah. So usually, because all of these markets are closed over the weekend, you get a really, let's just say, lack of price action during those times. And so I know this chart has the weekend labeled here. Even like they have the weekend labeled on Saturday and Sunday with these times. It's just the indicator doesn't know necessarily which days the market is open and closed. That's why it's even marking New York on Saturday and Sunday. But obviously, you know that New York wasn't open on Saturday or New York wasn't open on Sunday. It's literally just labeling the times of days on these. But here's the thing, it's not very helpful to use any of these over the weekend because the stock markets are closed during them. You're going to get a lack of volatility over the weekends, just FYI. So this is way more helpful during weekdays whenever the stock markets in these places are open. And so, as you guys can see, like New York session here is my favorite time to usually trade. First off, because I am US based, so it's during like whenever I'm usually available to be able to trade. But also, look at this, guys. Like right whenever New York session started, like London was pretty much just sideways and down, right, for most of London. But you can see, like right whenever London happened, you started getting some volatility. But it's really during New York where these candles started picking up. Like look at it closely, right? After, these candles during London were pretty, let's say, subdued. Like nothing really happened. There wasn't big price action during them. But look at New York, like right when it started, you see all of these price swings on BTC, like these 0.5% 15-minute candles one after another, because you get an influx of volatility during those sessions. Let's look at things last Monday, for example, to get an idea. So Monday happened over here last week, and as you can see, this is when the fun really starts during the week. So I'm going to last week. You see the right when New York started last week, you pretty much just had a big dump followed by a pump, and so that's when the volatility really starts bringing itself in. I'm not really focused on Sydney's stock market here, guys. Just letting you know that happens with a little bit of an overlap with New York. In my opinion, Australian stock markets do not bring good volatility. Um, Asia is really when things start, and that's going to be pretty much right where you see that Tokyo box. Then you usually get some more volatility. London's pretty subdued, but again, my favorite are usually New York and Tokyo and Asia to be able to trade, guys. Um, I usually see a lot of the volatility during those sessions. Like, for example, here on Tuesday on New York, you ended up getting a really like a fake out pump and then a big dump to start New York. And then when look at what happened right when Asia session started here on Tokyo. You had sideways for 3 15-minute candles and then boom, pump the rest of it. And then whenever London started, you can see here on London, when I say it's subdued, we started here and ended London right here. So as you can see, that is pretty much the same price. So there wasn't really a whole lot of constructive price action during them. But boom, look at New York. Right when New York started, immediate push to the upside and big push, big candle. Nothing really happened until Asia. Again, you had another pump. As you guys can see, what do you notice about this? Where do you see the most volatility throughout these sessions? What do you think? Where do you see a lot more of the volatility? Yeah, it really does usually happen during New York session. And so that's usually when I like to trade. And as you can see, do you see how during the weekend, New York session becomes pretty subdued here? Like pretty much not really a whole lot of things happen. It's because the market's closed. And so really like, especially on Saturdays, look at this lack of volatility, guys. This entire area, you had like nothing going on. Saturday like was pretty much just barcoding price action. Sundays usually things pick up towards futures open, guys. So that's pretty much whenever the stock futures open at 5 p.m. Central US time, and that is pretty much right around here with this volatility in the Sydney area. And so that's where you're starting to get those moves. And so these sessions are, in my opinion, really nice to have marked, guys. Especially if you're someone who doesn't live in the U.S., it can be really helpful to get an indicator like this on your trading view. It's free, just so you know when New York opens and closes. If you know you don't live here, it might be a little harder to be able to tell. Like it's harder for me to tell whenever, for example, Asia session starts, especially if there's like time zone changes and stuff, because I don't know exactly when the Asia stock market would open. So it's nice having an indicator that can tell me. And so again, guys, like sometimes it's nice to trade London session. I prefer to trade New York and then Asia if I am going to take trades. Sydney, Australia, so right after New York into Tokyo, which is pretty much my time, is like 3 to, I don't know, how many candles is this? When New York closes, that is about, it's like 2 hours, 15 minutes. And so it'll be like at least like a couple hours after New York before Asia starts for me, Asia session. And so, yeah, again, guys, like I like having these indicators on the chart to give me an idea when volatility might come through. It's just really good to be able to know when New York session is starting because that's really when I like to trade. But some people do like to trade, Asia session and London session primarily. And that's fine. London can provide at least some nice range moves, in my opinion. And some people also, something that can help you is to mark New York open and New York close. So what I mean by that is like if I want to know when New York open is going to happen, or if I want, for example, if I'm going to trade Asia or London the rest of the day, I could go to where it says New York on my chart and I could mark open. So New York open for me would be like right here. And then New York close is going to be whenever that happens. I also have this Spaceman BTC key level indicator, and I can click settings if TradingView would let me. It's not letting me click on the settings now, but in the Spaceman BTC key level indicator, you can actually go into the settings and turn on different sessions open and closes. So like I can go in here and turn on New York open, New York close, so I can have those marked directly on my charts as well if I want them. And so that's sometimes pretty nice to be able to see. But yeah, guys, that's kind of it whenever it comes to using these. I think it's really helpful to have sessions marked on my chart. And to me, like being able to know when they're going to happen can give you a pretty nice advantage, especially if you're not in the time zone to be able to actively know when it's going to happen. Okay. And then just to quickly talk about Bitcoin for you guys before we go, and we'll look at AI16 as well. I do think that here on the 4 hour here on Bitcoin, I'm not exactly liking this 4 hour structure, guys. Not gonna lie. The reason I say that is looking at the structure here. Ever since we put in our lows here at 99K, as you can see, like every single low we've had was a higher low, right? What do I mean by that? Well, after we've put in every single one of these lows, like pull back into a high, and then pull back into a high, pull back into a high, that sort of thing, pull back into a high. But the problem is for now, we did just get a pullback into a lower high. And so what does that tell me? It tells me essentially that Bitcoin should not close with a lower low next if we are going to go higher short term. We have a nice 4 hour order block here on BTC that I would be personally monitoring for longs. I think this would be a nice place to be looking for longs on Bitcoin personally, it would be a pretty easy setup here for something like this. And for me, my invalidation would be if we close a 4 hour below it, then I would obviously target the highs here. If Bitcoin loses this last 4 hour low, things won't look as great. There's a potential harmonic that is forming here that I would be looking at with this lower high, something like this. And I would be aiming for the 886, which to me, this does not look bad either, because you would actually have a higher low if we got that. And so that wouldn't be a bad setup in my opinion. But we have a couple options here. Either we get a bounce here for a trade, or I would be looking next to take a trade at this D point here. Two different options. So let's see what happens here, guys. Let's see if we get a good bounce or not. Yeah, and then we can take a look at ETH too. So Ethereum here, honestly, to me, looks a lot better than Bitcoin. For me, guys, as long as Ethereum, like Ethereum here, got a really nice bounce off of this 4 hour order block, which I do like. The only thing I don't like is this FVG here. We need to flip this back into support. And so for Ethereum, we really got to see it reclaim this level here at 2557. If not, this is going to look like a bearish retest. And so I would not be really like super interested in Ethereum, because now you've already missed the bounce down here, and really like we got to see this level up here flipped if we are going to go higher. And so pretty much two different potential scenarios here. For now, I am leaning bullish. It's just the fact that Bitcoin doesn't look super great that bothers me on Ethereum. Honestly, like if Ethereum cannot hold here, then I think it'll probably end up coming all the way down to about 2447. Because we have this big imbalance here, this big 4 hour candle. Half of it got filled, but I do think we could very easily come down to 2447 next. So if I were to set any limits for like longs or anything, it would be down here. And I'd be looking for something like that. Yeah. And then let's look at AI16 before we go. Bitcoin is putting in a pretty nice bounce here, which is good. Let's see what happens. See if it turns into anything. So with dog here, I am out of the trade now, just FYI. I can cover it, but only thing here is this breakout has fully retraced. Honestly, like it has come back down to this breaker. So I think honestly like it could hold here, but we'll see. Like it doesn't look too bad, not gonna lie. I like that it's holding this breaker, retested 4 hour trend, and it did SFP these highs, so that's why it came down. Really though, if it does retrace anymore, it really needs to hold right there, otherwise it'll look pretty bad. So if you want to take the same setup again, it technically is valid, and it would just look like this. I've got a pretty busy day ahead of me, and so today I won't like send this one out on my channel, um, just because I think we're with the Trump tariff news that came out earlier. I think we could have some pretty strong volatility on our hands, and so I would I think it's time to be more careful than usual. So with AI 16Z, this unfortunately is just going sideways still. Not really seeing anything super interesting, which kind of sucks. But I think I'll probably move my DCA up a little bit here. I think I'll probably go with this value area low because it's also going to be a retest of our demand line, which I like. So I think if we do get a little lower, I think I'll probably go for a DCA about right here at 1.4. It's just range bound though, unfortunately, man. Not really much has happened. With the tariff news, it technically is bad news because Trump pretty much just said that he's putting tariffs on, I think, Japan and somewhere else, maybe Korea. Um, but news just came out that Trump is delaying tariffs to August 1st, which I think they announced yesterday. And so we'll see what happens here. All right, guys, cool. Well, everyone have a fantastic Monday, a good week, and I'll catch you guys for another stream on Thursday, okay? All right, guys. Thanks for coming and have a good one. Peace.